Good morning and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Dave Deacon and we're coming to you from a cotton field here in southwest Oklahoma. And Randy, this year has been a year of cotton.
It really has, Dave. It's great to kind of be back in the saddle again after, you know, a pretty rough previous 4 years. There's no doubt that the crop that we have this year, even though we ended up being a little bit late in terms of planting, the reason why we were late was because we were getting some great rainfall and some good runoff that filled up the lakes in the area. We actually had enough runoff into Lake Lugert basically to fill it up. We ran some over the spillway and they were able to charge the irrigation canals so guys could work on their irrigation systems and make sure those were going to be functional before the real irrigation run began. But a little bit late, but we actually had a great September. We always look to September as being very important for our cotton, and there's no doubt that we were about 35% above normal in terms of cotton heat unit accumulation, which is really good for the maturity of our crop. October has been very warm also, and so with the combination 1-2 punch of September, October, we've got a very, very good situation here. Of course, the flip side of that is it's been fairly hot. That's where our cotton heat units come from, and unfortunately for a lot of folks it's been pretty dry too, so there's been a lot of stress for folks that are trying to get the winter crops planted. But on the cotton side of things, we feel like we're going to have a pretty good crop this year. I think the October USDA NASS crop report had us at about 200 or so thousand acres planted, somewhere around 200,000, and about 195,000 harvested, and they're projecting about 285,000 bales to be produced off that. I really hope that we can make that. There's no doubt that even though we had a late start, we had a great finish. I don't think that our irrigated will be, I don't think we'll have a lot of what I'd call home run type yields on the irrigated. I think we'll have some really good solid yields with that. And unfortunately, I think our dryland crop took quite a bit of stress in late August and early September. Well, actually pretty much the entire month of September from the dryland perspective in many areas. And so we're going to kind of struggle with some of our dry land, and hopefully we'll have average yields.
I know it's still kind of early into the harvest, but a lot of guys are hoping for 3-bale cotton. Do you think we're going to get it?
I think we'll see some 3-bale and maybe some better than 3-bale cotton out there in a lot of fields. I just don't know how common it's going to be, but it's very early in the harvest right now. Right. We've had some dryland fields come out. There's probably been some dryland fields that's been ginned. We are seeing some irrigated fields. There's a lot of round modules sitting in the fields here now that we can see that will eventually be ginned, hopefully, you know, fairly quickly. And we'll know a little bit more about what's going to transpire with both the yield of the crop and the turnout by the time we get through the ginning process. And ultimately, what we're really interested in too is our fiber quality. Right. And of course, as we were visiting earlier, there's really 2 reasons why in this tough global cotton market we're selling American cotton. And one of those reasons is fiber quality. We're very competitive. We've probably got some of the best upland quality varieties that we've ever had, perhaps in the history of the business. It never ceases to amaze me what we're seeing come out of some of the new upland type cottons. And so that's always really good, and it's really helping us to keep our cotton competitive in that global market. The other issue that we have, or I should say perhaps that we don't have, is contamination. The American cotton growers typically produce some of the most contaminant-free cotton on the planet. And the international bills recognize that, and of course it's incumbent upon us as folks that work in this industry to continue that tradition of as we want to grow a crop and get it harvested and ginned as contaminant free as possible. And I think that that's a real big plus for us in the market. And again, both the quality and the contamination situation is a real benefit to our industry.
What does it mean to you as you grew up in this area, Tillman County, so what does it mean to you to see cotton in the field again?
Well, I tell you what, it's a great feeling, and you know, this is kind of how it's supposed to be.
Right.
We're supposed to have a crop, and even though historically there may be issues with individual hail events or whatever, where we come in and we see some crops that get impacted, the last several years have been pretty tough on a lot of folks, and we just really haven't had an opportunity to do what we do best, and that's to grow a crop and to harvest it and to deliver this crop into the market. And that's what a lot of guys have really been missing, no doubt.
Okay, thank you much, Randy. We'll catch up with you here in a couple weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Randy Bowman, Cotton Extension Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. Wednesday afternoon was a time of sharp changes. It was a time that emphasized how you and I can use the Oklahoma Mesonet to foresee weather conditions to come. Sliding into the Panhandle were colder air temperatures. At 5 minutes after 5, most of the state was in the low 80s. In the Panhandle, temperatures were in the 50s and 60s. Panhandle wind gusts switched around to blow from the north and northeast. Wind gusts over the rest of the state were from the south and southeast. Relative humidities jumped into the 90s, while over the rest of the state, humidity percentages hovered in the 40s and low 50s. And rainfall on radar was showing up strong in the Panhandle. All of this a foretelling of what Oklahoma faced on Thursday through Sunday. Those changes in the Panhandle dropped the fire danger to near zero, while ahead of the cold and wet, fire conditions in western Oklahoma were in the moderate to high risk categories. Maybe when all the rain has moved through, the east side of the state will have had enough rain to lift the southeast county burn bans. Here's Gary with a look at our winter weather outlooks.
So let's go straight to the Climate Prediction Center's winter forecast. First, for temperatures, we see on this map increased odds of below normal temperatures, especially for the southern half of the state. Now for the northern half or northern third, we see equal chances. That merely means we have equal odds of above, below, or near normal temperatures. But for the southern half, we do see those increased odds for below normal temperatures. A typical El Nino pattern. Same thing goes for precipitation, that typical El Nino pattern. We see increased odds above normal precipitation, especially for the western two-thirds of the state, with those equal chances extending down into the northeastern parts of the state. But even more enhanced odds for above normal precipitation across the western two-thirds of the state. Now for the U.S. seasonal drought outlook, this is through the end of January. We do see, with the influence of El Nino, chances for drought removal or reduction where it now exists. So hopefully those wetter than normal conditions will also help alleviate the drought. Now we have to be careful we don't try and combine those cooler than normal conditions with wetter than normal conditions and try and produce too much snow in our imaginations. Now some people would like that, some wouldn't, but it doesn't always work that way. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Today we want to talk about something producers talk about a lot, which is the size of the cows and how it impacts the overall herd. We're joined by Dave Lawman, our Extension Beef Cattle Specialist. And Dave, what kind of advice do you give producers? You have this conversation pretty often.
We do, and it is a very interesting topic to producers because like you mentioned, everybody has smaller cows compared to the herd average, and everybody has larger cows compared to the herd average. I'd say the point that I would make is that, you know, there's a difference between moving your herd average, smaller or larger, compared to evaluating individual cows based on their efficiency and cow size. Very different topics because, you know, on average we think it's a good idea to have moderate cow size that match your forage resources. Extremely large cows don't match our forage resources here in this part of the world very well. Extremely small cows we think are probably not very efficient when you go to the finishing phase, carcass weights, so on and so forth. So somewhere in the middle is probably a good compromise.
You have pulled a couple of examples for us, one a little bit larger, one a little bit smaller. What's the ideal?
Well, somewhere in between maybe, although if we're talking about the herd idea, the entire herd, I would rather have 100 cows of the more moderate sized cow here. She has about a mature size of about 1,150 pounds when she's in moderate body condition, meaning body condition score 5, which Dr. Selk has talked a lot about. The 230 cow is, now she's an old cow. She's a very efficient producer. She's been around, this is her 14th year in this herd, but on average her body weight's around 14 to 1430 in a body condition score 5. So she's definitely a larger cow. But the point I wanted to make, Lyndall, is that the 230 cow is extremely efficient. She's big, but she's very efficient. The smaller cow here is an 8-year-old, but she's very efficient too. She's still here because she's really good. Okay, now there are gonna be very efficient small cows. In everybody's herd, there's gonna be very efficient individual large cows. But we just wanna encourage producers to think about, you know, the individual versus the herd average. And we don't think it's a very efficient thing to push the average herd size to extremes, whether that's on the small or the large end. Just an example, we've got several ranches contributed data that show that for every additional 100 pound of cow weight, we get on average about an additional 6 pounds of calf weaning weight. Okay, so you have to keep the extra 100 pounds of cow mature weight around all year long to get 6 pounds of additional calf weaning weight. It's just not
a lot of return.
It's not very exciting. And Dr. Doy says that the extra 100 pounds of cow weight costs you somewhere between $40 and $50 a year to maintain. So you're not going to get $40 or $50 out of 6 pounds of calf weaning weight. So that's why we think it's a good idea, if you're moving the herd average, maybe to move it or keep it to moderate.
Okay, some great advice, some great herd management things to think about. Dave Lallman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cotton harvesters are rolling across southern Oklahoma. Kim, let's talk about the price of cotton on the market right now.
Well, it's about 61, 62 cents down in the Altus area. You look at the futures market, it's running 63 to 65 cents, and Oklahoma price is about 2.5 cents below that. If you look, say, since July of 2014, we came up from that 70 to 80 cent price down below 70 cents, and it's ranged from about 60 to 70 on the futures market since that time period.
Can Oklahoma cotton producers make money on this crop?
They're probably covering the variable cost of production, but they're not covering the total cost of production. That means they can produce a couple years at these levels. They're going to have to keep those belts tightened, but over time, they've got to cover that total cost of production to stay in business.
Let's pull it out worldwide. How does the cotton price look?
Well, the price worldwide is relatively low, and the reason it's low is because we've had high cotton production. But this year you look at U.S. production, it's projected to be 13.3 million bales. The average is 16, so we're below average production U.S. World production, 107.4 million bales. The average is 121, below average. You think with below average production, why not above average prices? Right. Well, look at ending stocks. U.S. ending stocks, 3.1 million bales. The 5-year average, 3.2. Good number there for price. But you look at the world ending stocks, 107 million bushels. The average is 86. So you got excess cotton around the world and really in the foreign countries.
Now, what does that mean for future cotton prices?
That means it's going to take a while to get this cotton out of the market. You know, we've talked about with wheat and other commodities, high prices creates low prices. We had high prices back, relatively high back before 2014. World cotton production increased. We've now got excess cotton stocks. It's going down. These low prices are going to it's going to reduce world cotton production over the next couple of years. And as production goes down, stocks will go down and the price will go back up.
Now, on that same chassis there, let's switch gears to wheat. Let's kind of go through that.
Well, we've got the same situation in wheat. We've had 3 record world crops in a row. We've got excess wheat. We got relatively high wheat stocks. For this next year, you're going to see lower wheat production. You're going to see less lower inputs put in it to reduce those costs, to react to price. Production is going to go down, stocks will go down, price will go up.
What should producers be looking at, or as far as marketing strategies go?
Well, I think just stagger it into the market like you normally do. Pick when you want it sold, sell a little bit over time and get that average price. With wheat, there's probably not much going to happen to prices until we get into the March, April time period. We could have some weather price increase. We could get a little bit increase from Australia. Right. But it's really for wheat, it's going to be next July, August, September before we could get a big move. Then we got to lose that foreign crop. If you're talking about corn, again, you got to get to the South American crops and lose those before prices could go up.
Okay, thank you much. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
October and November are typically times when spring calving operations will be weaning the calves and also at the same time choosing which cows they're going to cull and send to town. One of the traits that I would use when we're making decisions about which cattle we're going to keep on our operation is temperament. Whether it's which cows we're going to cull or which heifer calves we're going to save back as replacements. That's a trait that I think should enter into your decision-making process. Folks at Mississippi State University about 10 years ago looked at the effect of temperament of cattle on how well they did as they went on to the feedlot, as well as to the eventual profitability of the cattle. You see, what they did was take calves from about 19 different producers that were in a program that had those calves headed on to a feedlot. As they gathered the calves and run them through the chute, they gave them individually a score as to how they acted when they were on in the working chute, the exit velocity, or how fast those calves jumped out of the working chute, and the third score was what they call a pin score, when they would individually mark down how the calves acted as a human would walk into a pen full of the calves. What they found was there was a real high correlation between such things as exit velocity, how fast they left the working chute, and how they acted in a pen full of calves as a man or woman would walk into that pen and look at those calves. They followed them then on into the feedlot and found that those calves that were the wildest, those that had the highest temperament scores, those were the ones that were more likely to get sick, had more treatment costs, and gained more poorly than did their more docile counterparts. That then all added up to quite a difference in profitability. At the time, those feedlot calves were on the average making about $100 per head in the feedlot. Those very excitable calves, those that had the highest temperament scores, only had a profitability of about $80 per head, as compared to their docile counterparts at over $120 per head. Now, certainly livestock prices and feed prices have changed since then, but I think the principle is going to be the same. The other part of this story that you want to keep in mind is that temperament is heritable. The heritability estimates are that it's about 35 to 45% heritable. That means that we can make progress in our herds by culling out those wilder cattle and selecting those replacement heifers that are more docile. Over time, we should improve the overall temperament of our herd, and I think in the long run, improve the profitability of both our cow-calf herd and for the feedlot owner that eventually buys our calves. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Cattle markets have gone through a pretty big slide in the last few weeks, and joining us now to talk about it is Daryl Peel, our livestock marketing specialist. And Daryl, the big question everybody wants to know, are we done yet?
You know, there are some very encouraging signs that we have cleaned up this problem we've had. It's a fairly short-run issue that's really quite different from the underlying market fundamentals. We've seen a significant recovery already in cash feeder cattle and fed cattle prices. Futures prices for live cattle and feeder cattle contracts have improved dramatically. More importantly, underneath that, the slaughter numbers would indicate that we have moved many of these heavy cattle that really caused the problem out of the feedlots, steers in particular. So it's all very encouraging. It looks like maybe we've turned the corner, if you will, on the worst of it. I think we have to have a little bit more time yet to see if we've really cleaned it up for sure, but the signs are encouraging.
That's good news. And then do you think we'll continue to see more recovery then as the year winds down?
You know, it looks like we should expect to see additional recovery in cash prices. Again, the underlying fundamentals are still very supportive of prices. So, you know, as long as we really deal with this immediate issue, and again, another couple of weeks will probably confirm that, I would expect to see, you know, feeder prices as well as fed cattle prices, boxed beef prices all continue to recover a bit more as we move into, the, you know, through the fourth quarter here.
It's easy to have some anxiety around all of this. What kind of advice do you have for producers then?
Well, again, you know, we probably passed the lows in a short-term sense on this, but from a stocker producer standpoint, you know, if we get wheat pasture conditions improving here, you know, there's an opportunity to buy these cattle. They're probably going to go up a little bit more, so sooner rather than later may be the opportunity for stocker producers. By the same token, cow-calf producers, time is probably on your side a little bit here. We typically see our biggest runs of the spring-born calves move in October and into early December, and I think we will see some additional recovery in this market. So producers that have been very anxious over what has happened to markets really are going to see a significant portion of that pass by, and I think we'll be in better shape over the next month or so as we market these calves.
Okay, keep us posted, and we'll see you again soon. Daryl, thank you. In the spirit of OSU homecoming this week, we want to learn a little bit about orange and black insects. We're here with Wyatt Hoback, an OSU entomologist in the entomology lab. And Wyatt, first and foremost, you have your field guide, and look what it has on the cover.
Yeah, indeed. It's got an orange and black insect, so OSU's brightest orange in America. Insects have a lot of orange and black, and they use those colors to try to scare off predators. So they appear like they either don't taste good or they're actually dangerous. And the contrast of orange and black is really beautiful in a lot of different kinds of insects.
And you have several live insects here.
I do. I have both insects and also some other invertebrates that are orange and black. So we've got very friendly millipedes. Millipedes eat vegetation that's decaying. And so this little guy is found in southwestern Oklahoma. These guys are actually housed at the Insect Adventure here on OSU's campus. And it's a place that the public can go and kids can see and handle a lot of these different organisms that are orange and black. So that's something to check out at some point. Stripe patterns really stand out in the environment. They warn predators. So as soon as a bird or a mammal tastes something like this and gets a bad experience, it avoids everything that looks orange and black. And that's why a lot of insects have those colors. We also have spiders, like this beautiful tarantula. It's actually not from Oklahoma, it's from Mexico.
And I'm going to just let you hold it.
Are you sure?
I am
I can
positive.
share. It's soft and fuzzy, and
It is really beautiful, though.
it doesn't get any more Halloween than
Right.
that color pattern.
It just needs a little tiny cowboy hat.
I know, or an OSU brand right in the
Right.
middle of the triangle, which stands for Dazzler, right?
That'd be terrific.
Well, that would be. Maybe we'll work on that.
So tarantulas, though, even though they're big and I think scary looking, are actually pretty kind-spirited, I guess you could say.
They're very kind. They don't attack. This is a female. She does have large fangs, but she's just hanging out as long as I don't try to squish her or pull on her leg or do anything that would give her the idea that I'm going to try to eat her. This is my favorite spider because it's found right here on Oklahoma State's campus. And I teach a class called Insects in Society. It's for non-majors. So when this spider is collected, students bring it in for extra credit, or I find one, I tell the students, oh look, we breed these and release them here on campus because they're OSU colors. And I wait a minute and then tell them the truth that these are just naturally occurring here. But jumping spiders don't spin webs. They search the environment for food. And again, this really bright color is the spider telling potential predators that it might be dangerous, even though it really isn't.
Last but not least, tell us about the North American burying beetle, which you have researched a lot.
Sure, the American burying beetle is doing okay. There was just a meeting of Fish and Wildlife Service and various scientists in Tulsa, and we discussed how it's doing and threats to the population that remains. So it's doing okay right now, but as the environment changes or there's more habitat disturbed, we're still concerned about the species. But it's out there, it's burying small dead animals, it's rearing its offspring, and cutting down on the number of flies that we have to put up with in the summer.
And it is still, to me, very fascinating insect. So thanks for teaching us about it. Thanks for the orange and black spirit displayed here today in the entomology lab.
Well, thanks for coming over and visiting. I really appreciate it, Lyndall.
Okay.
Well, that does it for us this week on SUNUP. If there was something on the show that you'd like to learn more about, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu. And while you're there, check out our social media. I'm Dave Deacon, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.